Hey guys, how's it going? And happy Friday. I hope all of you are doing good. And I hope all of you know there was a major Supreme Court case hearing. They literally just heard the oral arguments a couple days ago. And first and foremost, I'm trying to remain optimistic about this. Hopefully, there were some really good amicus briefs. And from what I understand, the Supreme Court often pays heavy attention to the amicus briefs, and what you hear in the oral arguments is not necessarily indicative of the overall outcome. However, if you guys heard the oral arguments in the Cargill versus United States case, this is Cargill out of Texas. The Fifth Circuit had decided that the bump stock is not a machine gun, which made it where the different Circuit Court of Appeals became split on this issue, where we had circuits that said that it definitely is. We had the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals that was deadlocked, meaning it did not overturn the lower court's decision. So, with there being varying opinions without the circuits, they call this a circuit split, this case became ripe for the Supreme Court. Now, a little bit of background information. A lot of you might already be wanting to say, but who cares about bump stocks? And there's no reason to say that right now, because first of all, that's kind of a frustrating thing that a lot of people in the gun community have been saying for years, but also it doesn't really matter what you think about bump stocks. The implications, the court's ruling, the case law, the precedent, all these terms you're going to hear when you think about the Supreme Court has so much to do with the Second Amendment, so much to do with everything else, more than it actually has to do with bump stocks itself. So if you heard the oral arguments, let me know in the chat what you guys think. And welcome. I was reading the chat earlier today, just a little bit ago before we started this stream, and you guys are awesome and good to see so many good people here. And I did read all of the chat from last week, and I appreciate all of you guys. It's always a good time, and I really look forward to hanging out with you guys on Friday nights. But I listened to the construction of the arguments in this Cargill Supreme Court case. Major two-way case, guys. This could be just as big, if not bigger, than the Bruin case. And this could really help us out, or it could really screw us. So in the title, I'm not being hyperbolic. Danger. This is a very dangerous case if it goes against us. Something we'll be backpedaling and reeling from for a long time. It could go our way and be an out-and-out victory. It could appear to be a victory, but actually set us much further back. There's actually about 3 ways this could go, in my opinion. Now, there's lawyers that are talking about this, and there's channels that'll give you the legal analysis. But I want to talk about this case and what I heard happen, the narratives that are being portrayed, this extremely slippery slope that was being set up by some of the more liberal Supreme Court justices, and even some of the questions that some of the so-called conservatives were asking, and some of the devil's advocate, if you will, maybe, that they were playing, that was kind of startling and shocking and just put like a sour taste in my mouth. Now, again, there's lawyers that discuss these things, but I'm not a lawyer, and maybe sans 1 or 2 of you that's watching right now, you're not a lawyer either. But I do know what the Constitution says, and I do know where my rights come from, and I know what it should be to be an American, and I know that all gun laws, every single one of them, including the National Firearms Act, are completely and utterly unconstitutional. You see, you don't have to go to Harvard or Princeton or Yale. You don't have to have a big YouTube channel. You don't have to be a YouTube lawyer to understand this stuff, because our founding fathers wrote some of the most beautiful documents that exist. The Holy Bible being number 1. Not even close. That's how I look at it anyways. But besides that, they wrote our founding documents, including the Declaration of Independence and the United States Constitution, where literally a 3rd grader can understand it. Maybe some of you that are watching right now are in 3rd grade, but adults that don't have a college education, or maybe some that do, can understand it. And you sit here and you listen to these people wearing black robes and you listen to these lawyers litigate, and they say these are the best lawyers, and well, I'm not so sure that the Cargill lawyer's the best lawyer, but you know what I mean. They sit there and they mince through all these things, and I'm like, look, people, you guys are missing the forest through the trees. And this is one of the biggest Second Amendment cases we've had in a long, long time, depending how this develops and depending what the majority opinion ends up being, could be the biggest or in the top 2 or 3 biggest Supreme Court cases for the Second Amendment in our lifetime. And I found myself just sitting there shaking my head, being like, with all of the volumes that these people must read, with how big their libraries must be, with these being people that are supposed to be able to have the highest jurisprudence in the land, haven't any of these idiots read the Declaration of Independence lately? Haven't any of these idiots read the Bill of Rights lately? And unfortunately, I've concluded they have not. And when I look at all of the recent Michigan gun control and all of the gun control in so many of these states, I've concluded that these people do not. Either that or they completely and utterly hate America and no longer look at the Constitution as the supreme law of the land. But I do. And I believe that the Declaration of Independence has a lot of wisdom in it. And I'm going to read the beginning of it tonight for you, which I often have before. But we need to be reminded of why the United States was formed as a country, what its core fundamental values would be, where do your rights come from, and what does the Second Amendment actually say? And what does it actually mean? So we're going to talk about that tonight in context with this new Supreme Court hearing. Just happened like 2 days ago. This is still breaking news with this Cargill case. And then if we have a little bit of time afterwards, I'd like to open it up to a little bit of chat here and do some Q&A. So I threw that on the second half of the title. So if you have any questions, start thinking about them. As always, the super chats will be in the queue. Those will be answered no matter what. But I will answer some other ones other than that too as we get going. So before we start talking about this potentially dangerous Supreme Court case, hopefully it's good, but I'm worried. I just want to thank all of you for being here tonight and all of you for the many ways you help support the channel. Thank you to all the Patreon supporters. A lot of you guys have been there a long time. Look, you guys are my sponsors, okay? These super chats you guys leave, some of you guys $1 a month, $5 a month. This is not brought to you by corporate agenda, corporate whatever. I do whatever the heck I want. And I'm allowed to just sit here and be me in my shop because of you guys who help physically, monetarily keep this channel going. So thank you to all my channel members. Thank you to everybody who supports on Locals. Locals is a different site, censorship free, where I do a bonus live stream every week and make other posts throughout the week. If anyone's in a 9mm, make sure you check out over there because I posted something pretty darn cool and actually quite a few cool posts, literally just today. So if you haven't been to Locals in a while, head on over there. Hope to see you guys in the live stream tomorrow night. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, the link's down in the description. Locals is part of Rumble, which I also have a channel. But check out my Locals community. It's a place where we post all kinds of other content that you most definitely will never see here on YouTube because we have to do different things here on YouTube. So good to see all of you guys. Also, before we get going, I just saw out of the corner of my eye, RPM, Rockville Precision Munitions out of Middle Tennessee. We have an ammo maker here in the house. So if you guys want to talk about ammo, definitely talk to him. Real quick question. How many 9mm guys are there in the chat? This is the RPM with a Bible verse. Proudly on the box, blessed be the Lord my rock, who trains my hands for battle, my fingers for war. And that's Psalms 144:1. This is 124 grain FMJ. If you guys want to know more information about RPM, good company. Check out my Locals post. As soon as this stream's over, head over to my Locals community. I will have a post where you guys can have more information on that. This is some FMJ plinking ammo. He has fancy stuff, makes basic stuff. 9mm versus, what do you guys think about 10mm? This is 180 grain 10 millimeter jacketed hollow point. It's 50 rounds. A lot of times when you buy 10 millimeter nowadays, it's basically 40 long and expensive. This is real 10 millimeter. So 9 millimeter, or do you guys like 10 millimeter weak that you buy at the big box store? Or I know I might be reaching out there. Any real 10 millimeter fans who actually like 10 millimeter that kind of knocks your socks off. So that's what this is. Check out my locals post as soon as this stream's over. And yeah. So this Cargill case, you guys familiar by now a little bit? Now, I've been talking about this bump stock ban on this channel for, oh my gosh, when did the ban go into effect? Let's see here. Trump banned bump stocks, what, 5 or so years ago. Wow, time flies, doesn't it? Can't believe I've been doing this channel this long. Is there anybody who's been watching this channel that long? I know a couple of you guys have. Chime on in and let me know. Wow, it's been that long. Jeez, Pete. Trump banned bump stocks. The ATF had said under 2 prior administrations, George W. Bush, Obama administration. Obama's administration several times said not a machine gun. They're just not. And if you know how they work, they're just not. Like literally not by the definition in the National Firearms Act. Well, they said, sir, to Trump, we can't ban bump stocks because they're just not. And he said, just do it anyways. Get them gone. It established a new precedent. It had established a new way that the ATF and other bureaucracies, but we're talking about the ATF here with this exact case. They started looking at new ways that they could do rule making that wouldn't necessarily just be interpreting an existing law, but actually changing the words to laws and changing the core fundamental meanings of statutes. Well, under this new precedent, and I warned you guys about this when the bump stocks literally got banned. Maybe there's a couple of you guys that remember that. On this channel, sitting right here in front of the same computer I am now, I said, guys, maybe for the rest of the Trump administration we'll be okay, but what if a Democrat comes in next time? Right? Well, what's going to happen? This could lead to a whole slew of other gun control, fiat law, rules that have the full force and effect of law, just complete and utter unconstitutional craziness. And guess what happened? And since we're on YouTube, I'm going to cite Time Magazine, NewsGuard certified source. They said, look, this was the most popular and the most fortified election of all time. So fortified as it was indeed, we have I call him the current former vice president, occupying the White House. And yeah, he rushed right into it. We saw things like frames and receivers bans, certain types of triggers being deemed to be machine guns, bump stocks, which right now there's a stay, okay, in that. But yeah, according to the ATF, virtually all, like almost literally all braced pistols are now SBRs. And we're going to have to see how that promulgates throughout the courts as well, aren't we? Well, this led to a very, very slippery slope where now they're saying that soon, all of you, presumably, most of you, if you want to be able to sell your lawfully owned property, will have to become an FFL. And they've gone completely and utterly rogue if you just literally compare it to what the words of the National Firearms Act say. Now, here's a big problem I had. Right off the rip, in the oral arguments of this Cargill case, it was immediately accepted by, let me back up. It was immediately proclaimed by the government's lawyers. We'll call these the bad guys. Are there really any good guys? I don't know. I know, like, you guys are good people, and I'm far from good, but I try my best. But when it comes to this kind of stuff, is there a good guy or a bad guy anymore? And that's a serious question. Talk to me about it in the chat. I want to know. So there's the good guy and the bad guy. Maybe there's the less worse. Maybe they're all bad. I don't know. I don't know if I'll be able to figure it out 100%. But the government comes in and proclaims, look, these are machine guns. Clearly, function of the trigger, and we're going to get into what I'm talking about in just a minute here, means this, but it also really means this. And it really means that. And of course, the National Firearms Act is the supreme law of the land. The National Firearms Act of 1934. And I'm sitting here saying, well, hold on a minute. In my country, or at least the country I want this to be again, it literally says in the United States Constitution that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and that the Constitution may be amended. And it was amended indeed in 1789, 10 times, ratified in 1791. And the second time, our Constitution, the supreme law of the land of the United States of America. Are you guys following me yet? Now, I know you guys are following me. You're very smart people. But apparently, the Supreme Court can't follow what I'm about to say. Apparently, none of these lawyers and people wearing robes sitting up on high dais, none of these people can understand what I'm about to say here. But I understand that in the United States of America, the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. It literally says so. I also understand the amendment process as laid out in the Constitution. And if it's amended, that also becomes part of the supreme law of the land. Now, I read the Second Amendment. Look, I love all of the Bill of Rights. I really do. But I like the Second Amendment the most because, look, the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Yeah, they put that in there for a reason. It wasn't for hunting. It wasn't for collecting. It was to protect us from enemies, foreign and domestic. And these domestic enemies would be, not if, but when, we would have a tyrannical government. They put the Second Amendment in there to forbid the government from treading on your natural right to keep and bear arms. And the beautiful thing about the Second Amendment is there's no guessing as to why or what the result would be if we didn't have one. It literally says so in the first part. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. Think about how powerful that clause is. Look, guys, I love the shall not be infringed part, obviously. And that's the part that's like the coolest and gets the most play on the t-shirts. But hold on a minute. Think about that first part there. How beautiful that is. Being necessary to the security of a free state. We want to secure a free state. We want to be free, don't we? I hope you do. I know I do. And you would think everybody would want to be free, but apparently everybody doesn't want to be free. A lot of people want to live in chains and live under the boot of a tyrannical government. At least I'm guessing they do. Because here we are, a well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That's the law of the land. It tells you the why. It tells you the what. It tells you what happens if you don't have it. How many people here graduated from Harvard? Show of hands. No, not me. I'm just saying. Show of hands if you did. And if you did, fine, I guess. Maybe. I'm leery of you if you did, but maybe you're okay. How many of you guys graduated from a community college or a trade school? How many of you guys have a high school diploma? How many of you guys have a GED? How many of you dropped out of school in 5th grade and somehow escaped the system and the educational industrial complex? I don't really need answers to that because I doubt there's even one person in this whole chat right now that doesn't understand the words of the Second Amendment because it's crystal clear. It's clear that it doesn't grant you the right to keep and bear arms. It tells the government, no, we the people already have that right. And it means shall not be infringed. And I know there's somebody right now thinking, but why are you ranting about this? Well, this is the most important thing when it comes to the Second Amendment. But also, what I'm talking about right now is something that was never said in the recent Cargill Supreme Court case. Not by the government, which is supposed to be the bad guy, but the good guy lawyer. I'm hoping he's a good guy. I don't know him, but I don't know if he understands the Constitution because I never even heard the Cargill lawyer, even one time, say anything that I just said, let alone half of it or a quarter of it. In fact, I watched the Second Amendment hearing, a hearing in a landmark breaking case. And one justice barely mentioned the Second Amendment one time. He said, are there Second Amendment implications here, counsel? And I'm paraphrasing. You guys can go listen to it and read the transcript, but that's what was said. And Cargill's lawyer, again, this is the guy that's like the good guy, the guy we're rooting for here to win this oral argument, because oral arguments are important. I don't care what anybody says. They're very important. He said, well, yeah, there certainly would be and stuff, but like, never mind that because we're not arguing that here. I'm thinking, what the heck? Like, where am I? What's going on? And I'm like, well, we're in the year 2024. Wow, that went by in a blur. Remember 2020? Do you guys remember 2001? There's just certain years that pop up when it's like, man, oh man, America just lost a big piece of herself. Can we ever get her back? And I hope we can get her back. And I hope you guys are all involved in getting this dang country back. We need to get it back because I'm sick and tired of it being run by people who hate the Constitution and hate this country and, quite frankly, hate you. But he says, oh, no, the Second Amendment, we're not really going to argue that here. And I'm thinking, wait a minute. This is a Second Amendment case. And we're not even going to argue the Second Amendment? One of the justices, I believe it was Gorsuch, doesn't really matter who it was, but I think it was Gorsuch, or it might have been Kavanaugh, said, well, do you have a Second Amendment argument here? He says, well, certainly there could be one, but no, not today, sir. It's like, excuse me? We now argue Second Amendment related items like a bump stock. We're talking about machine guns. And in front of the Supreme Court, they don't even argue for the Second Amendment anymore. Is that shocking to anybody but me? Now, I know all the lawyerly scholars will say, no, this is a good thing. It's a 3D, 4D chess. Hopefully it is. But here's the problem. Chess is a game, and I'm sick and tired of everyone wanting to play games with my natural rights. My certain unalienable rights that were endowed by my creator. That's how I look at rights, don't you? I know that you do, but these people are like, oh, well, we have to play chess, and we have to play Chinese checkers. Heck, I think I saw him playing Connect 4 a little bit in this recent thing. And look, board games are fine, but not with my constitutionally protected natural rights. So I know there's the 3D chess argument, but that was startling. And that was shocking. When one of the justices asked, is there a Second Amendment argument here? And I'm just sitting there on the edge of my seat going, duh, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, Your Honor. Do you want to be secure? Do you want to be free? And if so, the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Now, again, I've had my lawyerly and scholarly friends say, oh, you could never say anything so brazen in front of Your Honor. I'm like, excuse me? When you're in front of the judiciary branch, who is supposed to be judging laws, whether they're constitutional or not, you can't quote the Constitution anymore? That's supposed to be a losing argument nowadays? Ugh. No, just think about this for a minute. You're there to see if a law or a ruling in this case, this is about an ATF rule, but it has full force and effect of law, like make sure your dog's in good order. Your dog might get shot when they come and raid and take, and you can still go to prison 10 years. So rule of law, look, full force and effective law, the way this Department of Injustice has perverted things, but they're like, no, the Constitution is really nothing that we bring up anymore. In a Supreme Court case? About the constitutionality thereof? The Constitution's no longer germane? The Second Amendment's no longer germane? I couldn't believe it. Instead, there was a premise laid down by the government's lawyer saying that, well, 1934, that's the supreme law of the land, the National Firearms Act. And they kept on saying that they banned machine guns. Another huge error that was never corrected. It was never corrected by Cargill's lawyer. It was never corrected by anybody that was sitting on that bench high up on that hill in Washington, D.C. See, they sit high on that hill, in my opinion, so they can look down on you with their black robes and all. But they just all said, yeah, since the machine gun ban of 1934. Here's the problem. Machine guns actually weren't banned in 1934. And I guess that's nothing that's germane to mention to their honors either. But I'm sitting there thinking to myself, wait a minute. Why doesn't this lawyer say, no, they actually weren't banned? They were very heavily taxed. $200 tax was imposed on machine guns in 1934, which was a heck of a lot more money than it is today. Look it up, guys. Maybe $5,000 or $6,000, or maybe even more than that. I mean, if you blink, we just had 10% more inflation. So from the beginning of the stream till now, it probably just changed. I think you guys know what I'm talking about. If you've been to the grocery store, if you bought a vehicle or gas or anything like that lately. So they're going through this whole narrative where they're like, this is just settled score, that the law of the land that we all must abide by, written in 1934, banned machine guns. No, it heavily taxed them. Further to 1968, the Gun Control Act. The GCA of 1968 strengthened the NFA, which means it weakened America, and it weakened your right to potentially stand off foreign invaders or your own tyrannical government. They said no more machine guns can be imported, right? But you can still keep registering and faithfully paying and licking the boot of the man and paying them $200 to be able to exercise your natural God-given right. That was allowed all the way up until May of 1986, in which they said no more machine guns, even if they're domestically produced, can be added to this registry. And since they can't be added to the registry, you could only sell to regular people who aren't licensees of the government. Now, you can still purchase a license, several types of licenses. Special occupational taxpayer would be one of the things you need to pay for. Become a certain type of FFL. That's basically you're now in business with the government, paying extortion to the mob and saying, here, you require our safety. From what? I'm just fine. No. You require our protection. But if you pay this tax, you'll be okay. If you get this special occupational taxpayer, you'll probably be all right. Except for you're still not always okay, because they'll still come in a lot of times and ruin your life. But in 1986, they said unless it was already registered before, it couldn't be. Now, if it's a pre-86, there's different classifications, but there's a lot of what's called transferable machine guns that you can still buy today if you're rich, lawfully. Now, these laws only affect the law-abiding, as always. So criminals don't follow laws. A criminal can buy what's called a switch for their G-lock or whatever the young people are calling them nowadays. I think I heard them call them GAT and all this stuff. But you guys know what I'm talking about. They're real popular in the hood. They're easier to get than anything. It's easier for a kid to get a G-lock switch than it is a book, right? That's what the former president said when the current former vice president was the vice president. But you know all the hyperbole on their side. I don't need to get into that tonight, do I? I mean, we could get into it if you want to laugh, but it's actually not that funny because this is serious stuff. Now, criminals have all the machine guns they want. They'll always have all the machine guns they want. They pay little to nothing for it. But for the law-abiding citizen who does follow the laws, they're very, very expensive and hard to get. Now, back to this case again. They literally sat there ad nauseum. Like it must have been repeated. If it wasn't repeated 100 times, it was repeated 1,000 times. The National Firearms Act of 1934. I'm just sitting there thinking, the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Like, where's this coming into play? But no. The NFA is the supreme law of the land, is what the government was arguing. The SCOTUS were arguing, okay? Supreme Court of the United States justices were arguing. And the good guy, even, the Cargill lawyer, was like, well, yeah, of course, if this violated the NFA, it'd be a machine gun. If this did, it's like, why are we even talking about this stupid crap? Now, I get it. They had to talk about the things that were germane, but one of the justices opened the door. That's what this is called in court. When someone opens the door, you can now start going down that narrative. And as soon as that justice said, are there Second Amendment implications? I'm not a lawyer. I'm not allowed to argue in front of the Supreme Court. And I get it, guys. A lot of you are saying, dude, good thing you're not up there, because you can't play the 3D and 4D Chinese checkers and Connect 4 that these lawyers can play. Heck, they even play Lincoln Logs nowadays up there. I mean, this is like some serious gamesmanship here, boys and girls. All ye gather around. We're watching a world-class 3D, 5D, 6D chess. It's like, guys, this isn't games, though. And I don't know, but I do know this. Second Amendment was not argued. And they're basically, it's just a foregone conclusion that machine guns are illegal. They'll always be illegal, and they always should be illegal. And they even cited the great Antonin Scalia was his name, the late great lion of the Second Amendment, they used to call him. He was the one that put this huge poison pill in Washington, D.C. versus Heller, right? They said, well, the Second Amendment, but it does not protect particularly dangerous and unusual weapons. So if it's both particularly dangerous and unusual, the Second Amendment doesn't protect it. And that's what one of the greatest, supposedly, big air quotes here, 2A advocates for the Second Amendment of all time sat on the bench a little over a decade ago. And I've talked about this before. And if you guys are liking what I'm talking about tonight, make sure you leave a thumbs up, because I'm going to get some thumbs downs for saying this. But Scalia, as much as Heller helped us in so many ways, and we would say it's a victory, there was, in my opinion, a big poison pill there. I'm not trying to get anyone mad at me. Like, get mad at me for a few minutes. Let's still be friends. But I just want you guys to think about this, okay? I truly mean that. We can still be friends if we disagree. I think Scalia really screwed us in Heller, and it came back to haunt us again in this Cargill case, because Scalia said, if it's particularly dangerous and unusual, then no. And he said, such as machine guns. He literally exempted machine guns from Second Amendment protection in Heller. So now we have these guys that wear these robes. And you notice anyone that has authority over you always has to wear like this fancy costume? Like, shouldn't you be able to just talk wearing your clothes like I'm wearing? Like, I was out there working on wheel bearings on a truck. Shouldn't you be able to just get done with the wheel bearings, wipe a little grease off your hands, maybe not, and talk about stuff? No, you always have to wear this costume and all this kind of stuff. If you're representing authority, if you're representing the law of the land, jurisprudence, they'll call it, indeed. Yeah, okay, look. Even the conservatives, so-called justices on the court, were like, well, it's a foregone conclusion that machine guns aren't protected by the Second Amendment and that they're already completely and utterly banned. Did you guys hear this argument? They literally just said that, like, well, machine guns have been banned since 1934. Excuse me, Your Honor, but you might want to go back and actually read the National Firearms Act, because it didn't ban. It put on a $200 tax. And second of all, where the heck's the Second Amendment in this argument? No, there was no Second Amendment argument at all. Instead, they just wanted to sit there and argue over and over again about the function of a trigger. Well, the reason they're talking about the function of a trigger is this. I'm not going to get into the nuts and bolts too much, but we should read this simple excerpt from 26 USC. This is the 5845B. Yeah, there's over 26,000 federal gun control laws, regulations, CFRs, rules that have full force and effect of law. That's what we live under right now. So these are numbered in the thousands. 26 USC 5845B, machine gun. The term machine gun means any weapon which shoots, is designed to shoot, or can be readily restored to shoot automatically more than one shot without manual reloading. This is important here, by a single function of the trigger. The term shall also include the frame or receiver of any such weapon, any part designed and intended solely and exclusively, or combination of parts designed and intended for use in converting a weapon into a machine gun, and any combination of parts from which a machine gun can be assembled if such parts are in the possession or under the control of a person. So that one little clause, by a single function of the trigger, that encompassed, I would say, probably 90% of the whole oral arguments. Really, they went off on tangents on that, but that's what the argument was. And so the argument ensued, and it came down to where, well, clearly, if you just have any common sense and you know what a function is, and you know that a trigger can function but a person can't have a function, there was that little semantics argument back and forth. But at the end of the day, a bump stock's not a machine gun. Okay, literally anyone that can like rub two brain cells together to be able to haul their carcass into that robe and sit up on the bench would have to know, literally, if they studied all of the facts that were submitted and all the evidence, there's zero chance a bump stock's a machine gun. It does not meet the definition. If you function the trigger one time, one shot goes off, the trigger has to fully reset, okay, and then it can fire another shot on another function of the trigger. You do not expel more than one projectile from a single function of the trigger. It is not a mechanism that puts it into a perpetual state of firing. No, it requires constant pressure, manipulation of the firearm by the shooter. And they have to continually do that. The person has to exert muscles in their body, using muscle memory, using a thrust, if you will, a pressure, if you will. There's certain ways you can describe it. But at the end of the day, you actually have to establish that cadence where it would allow it to bump your finger on and off, which it was mentioned briefly in this court argument. If you know what you're doing with certain guns, like a Kalashnikov variant is one of the prime examples, you can stand there with just your belt loop with no stock at all. Okay, no stock at all. Like literally, you could just have the prong of the trunnion sticking out of the back with no stock at all. You could bump fire at will. Just depends how good you are and how much you practice. You can actually exceed rates of fire that the gun was designed for and have the gun basically outrun itself and have hammer follow and actually jam yourself. You're firing so fast if you develop these skills and techniques. So these are all important arguments, and I understand why they argued it, but instead they just kept on dwelling on function of a trigger, function of a trigger. And the Supreme Court justices that were considered conservative, okay? You think of people like, Alito, Thomas, Kavanaugh, Amy Coney Barrett, Neil Gorsuch, Roberts, but technically on paper, he's considered a conservative, okay? They were playing a little devil's advocate, and a couple times, especially that one time, one of them tried to open the door for the Cargill lawyer, and he said, is there Second Amendment implications here? Like, do we want to talk about the Second Amendment in this gun case? He said, oh, no, not necessary, Your Honor. That wouldn't really be, I'm paraphrasing. This was not the attorney's words, but like, why would we talk about the Second Amendment? Okay. I'm thinking, why would we talk about the supreme law of the land? Jeez, oh, Pete, imagine that. But then this other narrative started. Of course it did. Elena Kagan. Remember that one new justice on there? She comes on. She's under a confirmation recently. She's the most recent appointee. She's up there. They're like, Your Honor, what's a woman? She said, well, I don't know. How could I possibly know what a woman is? What do they call her? Jackson? Is that her name? They call her many things. But look, she's up there. They said, well, you're seeking appointment to the highest court in the land. Can you define for us, please, what's a woman? She said, well, I couldn't possibly tell. How would I know? I'm not a biologist. How could I possibly know? I don't know what a woman is. You couldn't possibly know what a woman is. I just don't know. And I'm sitting there banging my head. I'm like, wait a minute. A woman, an adult female person, obviously. Duh. Men have a penis. Women have a vagina. Okay, and like, were any of you guys saying that when she was in the confirmation hearing? What do they call her? Jackson Lee. They call her so many things. I literally can't keep track of it. Half of these thoughts I'm trying to dismiss because this is a family-friendly channel. She's like, I don't know what a woman is. Nobody could know. I'm not a biologist. I'm not a marine biologist. I'm not a zoologist. I don't know. I'm sitting there thinking, okay. But all of a sudden, she became a firearms expert when she's sitting there on the bench the other day. She says, well, hold on a minute. What function really means is not how it physically works within the firearm. No. What they meant is like, it's functionally the same. And I'm like, ooh, I see where this is going. We all knew, or at least I did, that this is where they were going to be heading with this. This is what the left's doing. And Elena Kagan was a big part of this. They started setting this narrative. What's a woman? I don't know, but I do know all about machine guns all of a sudden. Just think about this. You can't even make this up. I wish I was making this up. But you can't make it up. And she's sitting there going, no, what it means is functionally the same. So this bump stock can fire 800 rounds a second. No, you heard me right. That's what she said. That's what she said. No, look, 800 rounds a second. What's a woman? I don't know, but I do know this is a machine gun because it's functionally the same. It accomplishes the same purpose as what she did. Now, these people are real dumb until all of a sudden they're real smart and they start like, ooh, they just took my queen. They've got 3 pawns like getting ready to cross over into that last row, and they're going to be asking for 3 new queens. Like, these guys are good when you really get them out there. See, you want to play games and you want to play 3D chess. This is what happens. They shouldn't have even gone down this road, but they did. And they want to just sit there and stick with the semantics of what the word function means. you remember old Slick Willie, they used to call him, Bill Clinton? He's on trial. He was on trial. A lot of people said was facing a lot of prison time back then. And he said, well, that all depends on what the definition of the word is. And that's basically what I heard the whole time from the Cargill lawyer, quite frankly, and the government lawyer. But then the liberal justices start doing this narrative, and they're like, wait a minute, 800 rounds a second. Now, I don't know if she meant 800 rounds a minute or not. I don't know. She said 800 rounds a second. That's really, really fast, okay? Just so you guys know. That's like so insanely fast, it's not even... So you pull the trigger once, she says, and with a bump stock, and 800, with one function of the trigger, they kept trying to convolute pull of the trigger and function of the trigger, which the ATF has been trying to do for years as well. This is all part of the same narrative. They're clearly all on the same home team, and it ain't our team, trust me. So she's like, you function the trigger once, and poof, 800 rounds comes out. Yeah, 800 rounds in 1 second. And Elena Kagan kept saying a torrent of bullets. A torrent of bullets come out. See what I mean? They color this because these are very emotional people. And they're trying to use emotion to classify many and most things that you would add to your gun nowadays into a machine gun. I'm going to elaborate on that in just a minute. 800 rounds a second. It's like, well, wait a minute. Where's this 800 round magazine? And Cargill's lawyer did correct her there. Of course, he doesn't know anything about guns either, obviously. And if he's watching right now, with all due respect, sir, you don't know anything about guns. He says, no, ma'am. It can't do that because the largest capacity mag is 50 rounds, he said. So actually, like, you'd shoot the 50 rounds, and then, like, it would run out, and you'd have to reload. And I'm thinking, 50 rounds? Like, on YouTube, we can only show 29-round mags. And for all the YouTube people watching tonight, welcome. Lovely YouTube employees who are big fans of the show. So make sure anyone that works at YouTube, you guys leave a thumbs up too, by the way. Big fans of mine working at the YouTube team that loves to watch these live streams. Look, we're not showing any here. But on YouTube, it's 29 rounds or less. But in real life, this was the Cargill lawyer. This is the good guy. He said, well, 50 rounds is the biggest mag there is. So you couldn't shoot 800. I'm like, 50? Excuse me? Like, he should have come to my shop and gone in the back room if he thinks 50 is the biggest they make. Did anyone else notice that? But he said 50 is as big as they make. And I'm thinking, what? Okay, so they're going through this narrative. I'm like, nobody knows anything about how a dang gun works. Like, none of these people even own guns. I'm convinced in real life. Now, they might own their shotgun and they go out and shoot skeet every once in a great while. Yeah. No, skeet's a great hobby and shotguns are awesome. But you know the type. You guys know what I'm getting at, right? So I'm sitting here thinking, I'm listening to all this, but the leftists on the bench, we'll just call them, just because we have to separate them somehow, even though I don't know if there's too many good guys here. Just saying, some are maybe less worse than others. I would agree with you on that, I think. They did this narrative where they're like, yeah, but at the end of the day, what Congress really wanted to do in 1934 was make it where you couldn't expel a large volume of bullets. And that's where Elena Kagan would come in and say a torrent of bullets. What they really meant by single function of the trigger was we don't want lots of bullets going really fast downrange. They mentioned the gangsters of the 30s, and they talked about all that, which a lot of that was Hollywood propaganda, of course. Imagine that. Hollywood, communism, deprivation of your natural God-given rights. Yeah. So it's been a conspiracy against our rights for a long time. Obviously, we've had the National Firearms Act in effect for 90 years. Like, geez, oh Pete's, right? So they're going through and they're like, essentially what they meant is anything on a gun that would increase its rate of fire would make it a machine gun and banned by the National Firearms Act. Think about that for a minute. And think about what I said earlier, where it was already established somehow, even by the conservative justices on the bench and the liberals and the government's lawyer and Cargill's lawyer. It was already essentially established. Tell me if you guys heard it differently, that the NFA is the actual supreme law of the land, not the Second Amendment, and that we have to go by what that says. And I'm thinking, we can't go by what the Constitution says. But they're like, but what the founding fathers really meant in 1934 was if it fires too fast and more rounds go down range than something. Now, they didn't give an exact number, but they said 800 rounds a second would be too many. Well, that would just defy the laws of physics under current gunpowder technology and just the way our firearms work today. With weapons of the future, or maybe weapons that exist, we just can't buy them. That could be possible. Energy weapons, all of that. But under traditional, gunpowder and lead, if you know what I mean, gunpowder and lead, you're not going to do 800 rounds a second. That's literally impossible, but that's what she said. Now, other justices were saying 600 to 800 rounds per minute. Okay. They're trying to take this bump stock case and not only rule, this is what the left's trying to do. I didn't hear a real good argument, to be honest. I really didn't. I wished I would have heard a good argument, but I didn't hear one. They're trying to establish that yes, a bump stock's a machine gun no matter what. They're also trying to say the National Firearms Act is the supreme law of the land that governs firearms, which totally just sets aside the Second Amendment because it says shall not be infringed. The National Firearms Act has all these restrictions and infringements in it, loaded with infringements. This is the big first gun control bill that all the others have been spawned on when it became law in 1934. So it establishes the NFA as the supreme law of the land. This is the narrative of this case so far. Okay. It also sets that when they said by a single function of the trigger, what they really meant was if it fires too fast. So they're going to try to. This is if they get their way. And there were some conservatives starting to ask questions about rate of fire too on the bench. This is where this stuff gets scary and why I said danger in the title. This could be dangerous. Very dangerous. It could be a huge victory or it could be a Pyrrhic victory where you win the battle at the expense of losing the war. Are you guys familiar with that philosophy? So worst case scenario, they're going to try to turn this into, now the NFA is reinterpreted under this, it would be called case law or court precedent if they rule through here, right? If they rule strictly in favor of what arguments like Jackson Lee and Kagan and, thinking Sotomayor and who knows, because some of these so-called conservatives can be really wishy-washy and some of the questions they were asking, I was like, are they just giving this lawyer an out or are they starting to side with the leftists? Because this whole rate of fire thing started coming up. We could find that anything in a firearm, anything that's added to it or anything it's made with, made or remade, all that kind of good talk they like to use in the NFA. If it establishes any higher rate of fire than, and they'll have to set some imaginary baseline, then that would be a machine gun. Did anyone else hear that? When Jackson Lee specifically, but also Kagan and others, were asking questions. You had Roberts asking questions about rate of fire. You had Gorsuch asking questions about rate of fire. These guys are trying to sneak this in here and say not only is a bump stock a machine gun, no matter what, but the Second Amendment doesn't matter anymore, no matter what. And the NFA is the supreme law of the land in a country that says the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. An early Supreme Court case, Marbury v. Madison, 1803, says all laws that are repugnant to the Constitution, those are void. But I didn't hear that come up even once. Of course I didn't hear that come up. I would have been like, Your Honor, and whether it pleases the court or not, I don't give a crap. The Constitution says it's the supreme law of the land. The Second Amendment says shall not be infringed. Jurisprudence would dictate, case law, case precedent. In 1803, Marbury v. Madison would say, look, the bump stock ruling is null and void because it violates the Constitution. The NFA is null and void. Your Honors, see, 1803 Supreme Court case. Your Honors, read, as ratified in 1791, the Second Amendment. I have no further comments. Look, I know what you guys are thinking. You can't just do that. That's not how you can talk. I know. Here we are. So instead, they argued semantics for an hour about what a function is or it isn't. It all depends on what the definition of the word is. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, dude, did you guys hear that part? I think was it Gorsuch or Kavanaugh? It doesn't matter who it was, but when the Supreme Court Justice said to Cargill's lawyer, do you have any Second Amendment arguments? And he said, well, I certainly do, but that's not necessary right now. Wow. Wow. They're trying to establish a rate of fire. They're trying to establish with this case. This is if we'll just say the liberals, just because I have to call them something to keep this congruent and not keep naming all 9 individually. Look, I don't know if any of them are truly liberal or conservative. Seems like most of them on there hate America. Some of them might like America a little bit more or hate it a little less. You guys can be the judge of all that. But at the end of the day, this faction of the court was being very brazen and outwardly arguing that rate of fire is actually what defines it as a machine gun. Ooh, just think about that. What if you have a short take-up single stage? What about the Fifth Circuit's opinion, which that's how this came out of? Cargill was victorious in the Fifth Circuit, keep in mind, okay? It's only up to the Supreme Court because circuits are split. And it's generally not a good idea to have it where laws are a certain way in parts of the country, but not in another. We're supposed to have congruent laws. And that's why we do. This is why we do have a constitution that's the supreme law of the land. So everybody's on the same page. Think about that for a minute. Did you guys notice those slippery slopes that they were sneaking in there? It's like it always is. Our side, the good guys, just kind of like sit there and they have to be all proper. And they have to be prim and proper about things and be like, oh, I can't. But the other side, you give them an inch, they take a mile. The conservative justices were doing what conservatives usually do. And dwelling on the small little details and nuances and semantics. And then the liberal justices, the far leftist, radical, activist judges, because that's what they are, far leftist, activist, radical judges on this court, we're like, oh, no. Now we're going to establish a rate of fire test. Now we're going to say that if it can fire faster than something else, that it's also a machine gun. I think it was blatantly obvious that the one that said, I don't know what a woman is. What's a woman? I couldn't tell you. Now she's a gun expert, though. Just keep this in mind. Now she's a gun expert. 800 rounds a second. Doesn't matter how preposterous that is. She's still a gun expert. Okay? Yeah, I get it. But she's trying to shift this. And that's what they always do. That's what they always do. She's trying to shift it. And no. It's a foregone conclusion. The bump stock's a machine gun. Duh. But under this new definition she's proposing, that single function of a trigger means, because keep in mind, that's where she extrapolated all of this from. Now it could be this broad net that they can cast that could affect many. And depending on how far they want to keep going with this, maybe in cases after this, maybe, oh, God forbid, I hope this doesn't happen, guys. If the liberals end up getting some of the conservatives on their side with this, and Jackson, whatever her name is, I can't even remember her name, Ketanji Jackson. I think I said Jackson Lee earlier. That's some radical leftist congressman from Texas. Look, there's just too many of them. They don't know what a woman is. I ain't going to memorize their names. I mean, that's fair, right? If they can get some people to come over to their side, especially a lot of times swing votes, think about like a Roberts and stuff, right? We could be in a world of hurt. This could affect possibly all semi-automatics here. I mean, think about it for a second. It literally could. I mean, and I encourage you guys to make fun of her, like 800 rounds a second. Ha ha. It's good to laugh about serious topics like this. But at the same time, though, she's dead serious. And this is like 1/9 of the epitome of one of our 3 branches of government. This is an extremely powerful person. Just think about how much power this person has. You're right to keep and bear arms, according to them. Well, first of all, they don't grant you your rights. You'll always have that right. But your ability to lawfully keep and bear these arms, if you're law-abiding, just remember, if you're not law-abiding and you're a criminal, none of this applies to you. Just like go right back to the beginning, just whatever. None of this applies to criminals. Never has, never will. This only affects the law-abiding, as with all gun control laws. But this could literally make it where it's very difficult, if not eventually impossible, to own any semi-automatic firearms if the leftist portion of this court argument prevails, because they argue this stuff out behind the scenes with each other. They will, I think it's called conference over this, and talk about this amongst themselves. Now, I did see out of the corner of my eye, basically, essentially, a couple comments about how, yeah, right here, my friend C&T Designs and Arms, and he is my friend, and he brings up a good point, guys. That's why I said, and maybe you just joined the chat tonight, I said, I'm not going to argue this how these scholarly, lawyerly types will. I just wanted to have a conversation different than all the lawyer gun tubers are going to do. Because, yeah, of course, I'm not a lawyer. I don't want to be a lawyer. Could I be one if I wanted to be? Maybe, probably. But that's a moot point, because I don't want to be, and I'm not going to be. So, no, I'm not. I wouldn't have argued up there. Of course not. He said you got to read the room at 2A EDU. That is what why the 2A lawyer argued like he did. Oh, I completely agree with you, obviously. And I think he did I don't think he accomplished much. Even under that premise, it seemed like he was getting walked all over the place. He couldn't keep up. He just kept on saying, well, a single function that triggers this. It's like, dude, they skipped past that like a half hour ago. Now they're moving the goalpost to this slippery slope where they literally want to ban all semi-automatics. That's whatever the heck her name is, the one that doesn't know what a woman is, that one. Yeah. Crazy. Now, like I said, this could go a really bad way. And I hope it doesn't. And I'm not saying it's going to. I just wanted to argue this in the court of public opinion with you guys. Like, what the heck happened to using the Constitution as an argument? What happened to being like, with all due respect, Your Honor, the founding fathers acknowledged that my rights come from my creator. Furthermore, they said shall not be infringed. And the High Court itself in 1803 said if it's contrary to the Constitution, it's null and void. So, like, come on, guys. Go back and read your history. Read the Constitution, like case dismissed and stuff. You know what I mean? We award in favor of Cargill. And by the way, our verdict, look, dude, their verdict could literally, you could fit their verdict on the front of a postcard and still fit the mailing address. We hereby, Supreme Court justices, have read the Constitution. A, we acknowledge it's the supreme law of the land. B, the supreme law of the land says shall not be infringed. We now order that all gun control laws are null and they are void. Welcome to America, boys and girls. And they could assign their name to that. Now, I know all the internet lawyers are like, oh, they couldn't possibly do that. Why not? Great Americans like Thomas Jefferson declared things like all men are created equal, and they're endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights. And among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's back when we had a government that was supposed to be of the people, by the people, and for the people. That's back when these founding fathers, when they had heated debates, many heated debates, over what this country would even be, said the only reason this government will be allowed to exist at all is to protect people's natural, God-given rights. These are the laws of nature and of nature's God, is what 35-year-old Jefferson wrote on July 4th, 1776. So I know a simpleton like 2A EDU, a landscaper, plows snow if it snows, which it didn't much this year, cuts grass, stains decks. I know I'm much too of a simple man to make arguments in front of the Supreme Court, but the founding fathers were apparently too much simpletons, and they made too much sense. And they were way too blunt about our rights either to argue in front of the Supreme Court by that logic. You know, I saw a bunch of people on YouTube, good people, many of them who I know and I consider my good friends. There was a big frenzy going around on the internet yesterday that, oh my gosh, I can't get my e-form. Which is, I mean, I guess it's a scary thing. I don't know. I guess that's a bad thing, but here in the gun and Second Amendment community today, we're worried that we can't pay $200 for a permission slip that we're not allowed to beg and plead and give up our fingerprints and fill out forms and be put on a national registry and not be able to cross state lines without permission with lawfully owned property and pay a tax. Let me emphasize that again, a tax on our God-given natural rights. And that upsets many of us that we're not allowed to pay and to bribe and to beg to exercise our rights. So trust me, I get it. Nothing I said tonight would make sense in front of the Supreme Court. Nothing I said would be a prevailing argument. And maybe that's why I'm a nobody and I'll never accomplish anything with my life. And maybe that's why all of you are nobodies and you won't either. However, if you want to use that logic, you have to consider the Founding Fathers nobodies, because the Founding Fathers said, here's where rights come from. Here's why the government's instituted. And the right to keep and bear arms, it shall not be infringed. And there was no but at the end. There was no comma again. You won't find rate of fire anywhere in the Constitution of the Second Amendment, will you? Well, no, of course you won't. You won't find the word function anywhere in the Second Amendment or in the Constitution. But you will find beautiful words that said what this country's supposed to be. Now, maybe I'm just not a realist, and maybe I just don't understand where I'm living right now, but I ask you guys every week, where am I? What's going on? Where's America? I want to find it or get it back if we ever even had it in my lifetime, because I don't even know if there's anybody alive. There might be, but probably not even watching this that was alive before the National Firearms Act was put into place and upended the Second Amendment and became the supreme law of the land. But I'll tell you how they looked at this a long time ago, almost 250 years ago, in Congress, July 4th, 1776. And these aren't good arguments in front of the Supreme Court, obviously. I know that, guys. But there's a lot of truth here, and there's also a lot of lies going on right now in the United States and in the courts and in the Congress. And truth is treason in the empire of lies. Don't forget that. For thinking like a perfectly rational person, for agreeing what was written in Congress, July 4th, 1776, you're gaslit. You're made to feel like you're marginal. Like there must be something wrong with you. Now, these are people who claim that they have their authority vested in them by the United States government. But if you listen to them talk for usually about 1 second or 30 seconds, you found out these people reject the founding principles of this country. And they reject simple things that are supposed to be understood by everybody, because the Founding Fathers knew that in countries where they're run by lords and ladies and hierarchies, that only the educated people would even be able to read the laws to understand them. Go look at history. That's the way they did not want the United States to work. They wanted it where a farmer, which is a very important person. There's farmers today, which are very important people. Back then, it might have been a carriage driver. Today, it's a truck driver. They wanted not only the people that goes to the universities and the colleges to understand what this country was all about, but they wanted the truck driver and the landscaper and the teacher and the preacher and people with calluses on their hands and people that sat in ivy-colored buildings. They wanted everybody to be able to understand what the United States of America is about. And here's a big problem. A lot of you feel disenfranchised right now, and that's wrong. A lot of you feel like you don't matter anymore, and that's wrong. Because if you just make simple arguments that are very simple but very true, you're not considered articulate enough to make your case as an American anymore. And what's really sad is even our own founding fathers wouldn't be considered articulate enough anymore in this empire of lies that we live under. I hope this case goes our way. I truly, truly do. And it might. It might. I'm not into betting on the outcome of the Supreme Court business. I don't bet on anything at all because I can't afford to lose. I don't even buy lottery tickets. So don't ask me what my bet is. I can tell you my hope, but we shouldn't even be here right now. We shouldn't even be having the Supreme Court case right now. Not in a country where the supreme law of the land says shall not be infringed. And not when in Congress, July 4th, 1776, it was declared the unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America, when in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. That's all of you right now. All men are created equal. That they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. That among these, I love this part, guys. This is like one of the most beautiful things that men have ever written. That among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Just think about that. If you have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, what more could you ever possibly ask for? I wouldn't want anything more than that, would you? Not on this earth. Not in my country. That would be a great country, wouldn't it? That among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That's the whole reason the United States government was supposed to exist, right there. Deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it. And that's why I am talking out about this crap. This is the way America's supposed to be run. And I'm sick and tired of it. And I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. Aren't you? While we still have a First Amendment we can exercise a little bit of, it's a good American to talk about and to call out your tyrannical government. That's what the Founding Fathers wanted you to do. That's what they told you to do. It is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate the governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly, all experience hath shown. This is a cold, hard reality, guys. Think about this next part. And accordingly, all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. Have we just become accustomed to this? That the National Firearms Act is the supreme law of the land now? And that it's not even acceptable to bring up a Second Amendment argument in a Second Amendment case? Are we just that accustomed now? Hope y'all are excited. You can get your tax stamps again. I just heard about that today. Hopefully that brings a smile to somebody's face, and I want you guys to be happy. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Then they talk about such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies. And you think about them talking about this so long ago, and it's like, dude, this is like exactly the same things we're going through right now in so many ways. And people are just so accustomed to this that it's just become like, well, it's a foregone conclusion that the National Firearms Act is now the supreme law of the land. And it depends on what the definition of the word is, and what's a function? Function, conjunction, junction. It's like, what? Excuse me? What's the operative transient verb in this? The supreme law of the land says a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And I know that's not a good argument right now to have in front of the Supreme Court, obviously. Everyone's probably telling me in the chat all night tonight, if I were to even be allowed in front of the Supreme Court, I'd probably lose every single case. That's fine. I'm never going to be in front of the Supreme Court arguing as an attorney. I'm not an attorney, so you guys don't have to worry about that. But in the court of public opinion, this is what I challenge all of you to do. And this is why I want you to keep your head high and keep your hopes up. When you're talking to your friends, whether it's online, in your hometown, at your church, at your job, walking down the street, if the conversation arises and you get an opening for it, you'll be the judge of that, when you should have these conversations and when you shouldn't. Start talking to your friends and your family and your loved ones about where your rights come from. Start talking to them about what the Second Amendment actually says. And talk to them a little bit about what America is supposed to be. Because it appears that we the people are consenting to all this tyranny because most people just don't give a crap. Most people just keep their head in the sand and say, but the Second Amendment, and they can't touch my guns because of what? A piece of parchment paper? Beautiful paper, beautiful words written on it, but if you don't keep it alive and well, it'll just be another archaic thing that's lying in some kind of Library of Congress and the National Archives. I don't want the Second Amendment to be archived. I want the Second Amendment to be alive, like literally right now and tomorrow and 20 years from now and 40 years from now, for our children and our children's children and our children's children's children. To think about something like that as an old archive is sad. And there's a lot of people who just don't even think about these things, but it's actually something very interesting to think about. I mean, how much more interesting could you get than living in a country that acknowledged at its founding that you're endowed by your creator, not by government, not by a Supreme Court, not by a president or a current former vice president, but your creator endowed you with certain unalienable rights. Unalienable means they cannot be taken from you by anybody. This isn't like a negative thing I'm talking about right now at all. If you hear the passion in my voice, I'm excited because, like, could you imagine something like that? And I can't be the only one, but when I start talking about this stuff to people, these are some of the best conversations I've had. And people who want to talk about this stuff are some of the best people that there are. I know people want instant gratification. It's much easier just to level up on a game on your phone or to post a meme and get a few likes real quick, and it's a dopamine rush, and I get it, but like just talking to people sometimes, like in real life too, though, has like so much value to it. I hope you guys still talk to people in real life. Do you? And when they do, it's usually more of like a gossipy form of, oh, can you believe what the government's doing here? Can you believe what the government's doing there? Maybe start mentioning to your friends and your family, oh, do you see what the people are allowing to keep happening? Do you see all the people that are too intimidated? Like, look, you don't need to be intimidated. Like a third grader can understand what the Bill of Rights says. Some of my good friends, and I truly mean this, some of you might be watching and you know I'm not lying. Some of my good friends have GEDs, and less than that, actually. Quite frankly, some of the best people I've ever met have less than that, and they can understand this. I didn't graduate from a university. I can understand this. And there's good conversations that need to be had, because the fact that the Constitution is no longer germane to be brought up in the United States Supreme Court room, it's kind of sad, isn't it? It is. But if you want to change the Supreme Court of the United States and you want to change the legislator, oh, geez, oh, Pete, does that get corrupt? Trust me, I know how corrupt it is, and I think you do too. But if you want to change that stuff, you have to actually first change it in the court of public opinion. That's what we the people try this stuff in, is the court of public opinion. And if you want to be important and you want to matter, you have to assert yourself and make yourself important and make yourself actually matter. I know that you by yourself can't do a whole heck of a lot. I get it. Neither can I. But a grain of sand doesn't do much until you get a handful of it. And then it actually doesn't take that many handfuls to get a bucket. And you start taking buckets of sand, you start to get a little mound. And then when people see that, they might start picking up their grains of sand and joining on in. I mean, you could, if you had the technology and the time, reduce a mountain down to a bunch of grains of sand, couldn't you? I mean, obviously, that's how we have beaches and stuff, right? So, yeah. Don't know what's going to happen with the Supreme Court case outcome. They didn't argue any Administrative Procedures Act arguments, which I thought that was a big part of it. I never heard Chevron deference come up. That was supposed to be a big part of this. But they argued semantics of function for a whole lot, and then they added in that new slippery slope narrative where they want to establish a rate of fire. And that was the most unlawyerly, unscholarly review of the Supreme Court case you guys are probably going to hear on YouTube. So hopefully you enjoyed my 2 cents on that. And if you didn't, hopefully you guys enjoyed the chat. I want to read some of these chats, speaking of which, and then I want to shift into a little bit of Q&A. I know a lot of you guys listen on replay, so shout out to all of you guys. Make sure everyone's a member of my locals community, where we do an extra stream every week, and there's some pretty cool stuff over there. I know some of you are going to chime in and be like, dude, what about RPM, Rockvale Precision Munitions? As soon as this stream's over, go over there. There's going to be a nice post with more information, so you can learn more about that topic. Kent just became a new channel member tonight. Thanks, man. Nice to see you here. It says, don't tread on me in his avatar. I like don't tread on me. I like that a lot, actually. Boom Boom 2A. What's happening, man? Thank you for the super chat. He says, hope you had a great week. And we'll have an even better weekend. Yes, sir. I hope you have a good weekend, too. I was working on the old truck today a little bit, hanging out. And tomorrow I'm going to have a really good time. Yeah, you should see who I get to hang out with tomorrow. I saw her new dress, her new shoes. Boy, looking hotter than a firecracker on the 4th of July. I get to go to a daddy-daughter dance tomorrow, which is actually pretty darn cool. My daughter's super, super cool. She's gorgeous. I'm going to try to put my suit on and, I won't be able to keep up with her, but I'll try to look my best. I got my ears lowered a couple weeks ago and sharpened up my razor a little bit. You know what I'm saying? So I'm looking forward to this weekend. RPM, Rockvale Precision Munitions, with a generous super chat. Thanks so much, man. I really appreciate it, dude. He said, good evening, brother. Hope all is well. Sorry I missed your call. I just sent you a text. Cool, dude. I'll read it afterwards. And I know you called me. I couldn't answer. I called you back. You couldn't answer. That's how it is, man. Those of us that have to work for a living, we're all over the place, right? Thanks for the super chat, man. I appreciate it. And thank you for actually making 10 millimeter ammo. That's actually 10 millimeter, not 40 long and expensive. So appreciate that as well. And I appreciate you being a patriot. And I do appreciate the Bible verses on all your boxes of ammo. Sean Campbell, what's happening, Sean? Thank you for the super chat. He says, with regard to tactical use, nothing beats skilled mag changes. But this is regard to tyranny BS. Right. I completely agree. Changing your mags, look, yes. I just thought it was funny. Did anyone hear that but me? I hope I'm not the only one. The Cargill lawyer was like, well, you couldn't shoot all 800 instantly like that, Your Honor, because the highest magazine is 50 rounds. And I'm just like, sure. I mean, on YouTube, it's only 29 rounds, obviously. But, wow. Right, Sean? But no, man, training, yes. Hey, you're your own first responder. And the better you train, the more likely anything can happen, the more likely that you're going to live. And that's what it's all about. Boom Boom 2A, thanks for another super chat, man. And I know you support the channel in a bunch of ways, and I really appreciate it. Thanks for a super chat. He said, have you Googled 1 million rounds per minute gun? I have not. And yeah, so maybe I might be wrong. Maybe you can shoot 8,000 rounds a second. Not with anything I own, though, for example, but I'll Google it. I don't know if that's real or not. You just asked me if I've Googled it. And my very simple answer is no, I have not Googled that. And I'll still say it again. I'm not aware of any traditional gunpowder and bullet primer, like modern firearm. Not aware of anything that can shoot 800 rounds a second. But I'm sure the chat's telling me how wrong I am right now. So I may have to do some Googling on that. Thank you. DLD After Dark. What's happening, man? How you doing? Thank you for the super chat. Yeah. Wow. Okay, let me read this out loud. He says, by machine gun, we don't mean from a mechanical standpoint. We just mean if it's fast enough that it seems like a machine gun, which means it is. Duh. There you go. There you go. Yeah, that's what was happening. You saw that slippery slope. I know you did. That was the slippery slope. And that's what they're trying to do. I'm not saying they're going to succeed, guys. This is not meant to be a doom and gloom stream. It's just thought-provoking. I want you guys to think about this stuff maybe a little bit, right? But let me know in the chat if anyone agrees with me. They were trying to not only make bump stocks machine guns, but set this whole new super, super slippery slope precedent. And you got to watch out for that Elena Kagan. She's sly. And I mean that too. I've listened to her so many times because I talk about Second Amendment stuff on this channel, but I listen to a lot of stuff. I have many, many interests that we just don't have time to talk about all of them on these streams. But I've listened to her. She's sly. She can actually really, really start. Watch out for it. We just need to watch out for what these extreme leftists are trying to do right now on the Supreme Court. That's for sure. St. Vicari, what's happening, man? Long-time channel supporter and a big super chat right here. Thanks so much, man. I appreciate it, dude. He says, hey, bud, I've been really busy at work lately. I understand that. Trust me. He says, still watch you on replay. Cool. He said, but it's always good to see you live. Keep fighting like hell, brother. Well, thank you, dude. I really appreciate seeing you. Appreciate the financial support, but mostly I'm just glad to see you here. You've been watching the channel a long time, and shout out to you and all the people who watch on replay. But I am going to give a little bit of a perk to some people who are live right now. Do you guys have any questions for me? It could be about stuff going on in Michigan. It could be about ammo. What's my favorite gun? Do I like this one versus that? I know you guys ask me all kinds of questions, and a lot of times when I'm talking about these topics, like I did earlier, you guys basically only want to talk about guns in the chat. So I'm just going to give a minute and see if there's any questions. Like I told you guys earlier, I'm going to read all the super chats no matter what, because it puts them in a concise list for me. But I am going to go through here. If I miss somebody, don't blame me. It only shows me what's called top chat within StreamYard. I promise you that's how they do it, which is unfortunate. But I am going to go through here and see if I can find some questions. Let me see what we're looking at here. Okay, C&T says it's called the Metal Storm. It's not standard cased ammo. Yeah, I knew it wasn't. I was just saying. Really cool to watch. Yeah, boom, boom. Yeah, cool, guys. No, I'll look at it. You guys are always helping me. Snails, if you guys are into snails and you're a channel member, check out my snail videos. Or if you're a Patreon supporter or local supporter, I posted some cool snail videos. That's for sure. Vince Metzger, what do you think about the rumors that Tele ammo is corrosive? Now, if you guys are on my locals, I was making posts about this exact stuff. Okay. This is Tele ammo. Okay. I don't think it's corrosive. I have no evidence of that. I don't know. There's lots of rumors about stuff. Now, this might shock some of you. So, first and foremost, this is 7.62 by 39, so-called made in Azerbaijan. Along with this, which is essentially the same exact stuff in a different box, brought in by Kalashnikov USA, so-called made in Azerbaijan. Now, this is Russian. Golden Tiger says it's made in Russia. And I've done deep analysis of this and taken it apart on locals and showed you guys out of the box and all that. I can't tell the difference. So, with that said, I don't know that for sure. But now this is going to be the shocker real quick. Get ready, guys. Some of you are going to get a little nervous when I say this. I'm sure Vince won't. Most of you won't. Maybe one person will get nervous. I don't really care if it's corrosive or not, actually. No, I have old SKSs that saw plenty of military use, old AKs that were built off original parts kits. Some of them, now you have to have been into this a long time, and I've been into AKs for a long time when you could still get the original barreled parts kits with the original barrel back in the day. And you know what? Most of those guns are just fine. And all they did is shot corrosive ammo every minute of their life. So I don't worry that much about corrosive ammo. I truly don't. You could use Windex. You could use a little bit of water. It could be hot water, but I'm not convinced it needs to be. Just run a little bit down the bore of the gas system, shake it dry, blow dry it with a blower, air compressor. I mean, there's like so many informal ways. You can also take a 10% ballistol to 90% water solution. That will wash the salts away. Because when we talk about corrosive ammo, we think about these salts that are given as a byproduct from certain compounds within the primers. Now, if you go to corrosive powder, now you're going way back to like black powder. But for purposes of what Vince is asking about in a modern, cartridge, you're going to be talking about a corrosive primer, salts. Look, it's water soluble. Flush it out with something that's water. The cool thing about 10% ballistol to 90% water is it's emulsifiable. So the oil will mix in with the water. No, it really is. It's a water emulsifiable oil. Shout out to all the people that work in machine shops. Some of you guys are going to perk up moose milk, right? We call it moose milk in that industry. Many other things, cutting fluid, whatever. You'll have your concentrate, which is an oil. You mix it with a ratio of water. It usually comes out white. So these are water emulsifiable oils. So the cool thing about that is, and if you're using moose milk because you work at a machine shop and you know how to mix that stuff up, use that. That's totally fine with me too. But you can buy ballistol over the counter. 10% ballistol, 90% water. The water is going to flush the salts out. And then when it dries away, you're left with a light film. Water evaporates. Oil doesn't readily evaporate, right? Not as much. And you'll be left with a nice preserving film left. I didn't come up with that concept, but maybe sharing that information helps somebody. I don't know, but I wouldn't be worried if it was at all. Here's another theory I have, which might be nails on a chalkboard to some of the real prim and proper people. But look, dude, these are like AKs and stuff, right? So like, trust me, the stuff that they shot when they were in combat, we shouldn't be so worried. So this is going to be cringy, but you know what I do lately? Because although the recommendations I just gave you guys are like really good recommendations and they're tried and true for me and many other people, if I'm shooting a bunch of corrosive primed ammo and I actually care a little bit at the end of the day, I'll shoot like 5 or maybe 10 rounds of non-corrosive ammo. And to me, that blows enough of the possibly corrosive salt out. So like that's actually fine in my opinion too, believe it or not. But the whole ballistol thing is interesting and hopefully that helps some of you. All right. Just 2691. Do you own a TH9? If so, why? Yes, I do. If you want to see my video on my TH9C, so I have the compact version, which is functionally, see, I'm trying to play cute with the Supreme Court. Functionally, it's the same thing as a TH9. It's just a little shorter grip, right? Go check out my Taurus playlist. I have over 100 Taurus videos, including a couple with my TH9. And I don't know, man, I'm not even usually that big into hammer fire guns like that. It didn't particularly interest me necessarily. Most of my interest, guys, are actually in like milsurps and like really nerdy, geeky. Like this has a little bit different marking than most of them. This has a particular early type of wood on the handguards. Like I like to nerd out. And a lot of my interests are probably bore most of you guys 90% stiff. But I do like a lot of the modern guns, including many Taurus pistols. All my viewers were like, dude, we want to see a TH9. Like, what about it? And I'm like, I don't know. If all my viewers think it's so cool, I'll buy one for the channel. And I did, and I bought it with my own money. Help from you guys, with the channel money. They didn't give it to me for free, nothing like that. I just bought one on recommendation from a bunch of viewers, and I think it's a decent gun. But that's why I bought it, because a bunch of my friends, you guys, were like, dude, get one. We want to know more about it. So I've talked about it in a couple videos, and it's not my favorite gun, It's just literally just not my favorite gun. It's not really my cup of tea, to be honest with you, but I do like it. The fact that I don't dislike it, even though I'm usually not into that type of gun too much, yeah, so I think it's a cool gun. And if you're into a hammer fire gun like that, which hammer fire guns are cool, but if you're into that thing, cool. Kent says, what do you think about the dagger versus lone wolf? Oh, geez, that's a pretty broad spectrum, but yeah, I like the price of the dagger. I really like the trigger on the dagger. There's something about that hinge trigger. It's like it's an FN trigger, but better than an FN trigger, if you know what I mean. When I say FN, I'm talking about the company FN, like FNH, FN Herstal, FN USA. If you've ever shot one of those, then you shot a dagger trigger, you're like, this reminds me of, but I think the dagger trigger's better. I like the dagger trigger better than a regular OEM Glock trigger. I just do. I know that's sacrilegious to some, but I just like it. It just fits my finger good. I like pulling it. Don't think like really crappy hinge trigger like the Smith & Wesson M&P Shield hinge trigger. Also a good gun in its own right that I've reviewed on this channel. But it's not that type of hinge trigger. Think more like an FN trigger, but actually it's better than that, in my opinion and many people's opinion. Let's see here. I don't have anything against the people at Lone Wolf. I don't know them personally. I do know a lot of people at PSA. I've spent a lot of time there behind the scenes. I've been to the dagger factory watching them literally make them. Okay. Like when I say make, I mean like watching the machine shop machine and make, and then watching them assemble the parts that they made. I love the Second Amendment means shall not be infringed stance that the company has. I'm going to give the edge to the dagger because of all those reasons. With that being said, I have some experience with Lone Wolf, but I don't know the owners of the company. I don't know the people that work there. They could be just as cool as the people at PSA. I just don't know. But I do own several daggers, and I like them a lot. What's happening, Drain the Swamp 2024? He says, I'm here to keep my man card updated. Right on, man. Yeah, definitely keep your man card, guys. We don't need any more Supreme Court justices that are like, what's a woman? I don't know. Can you believe that? What is her name anyways? I think I've called her the wrong name like 8 times. She's a real beauty, though. I'll tell you that much. In a different kind of way. Walker Customs just popped in with a 223 super chat. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. He says, hey, bud, what is the Taurus G3X like? Dude, I love the G series. If you guys don't know this and you're new to the channel, go watch my Taurus playlist. Just spend as much or as little time as you want there. You'll quickly understand what I think about a lot of these guns. Now, you being around the channel a long time, Walker, you probably already know. I like the G2C. I like the G3C. I like the full-size G3, the G3XL, G3X. Get into the GX4 series. I like them all a lot. Now, G3X versus G3C versus G3 versus G3XL. You kind of have to bring all 4 into the picture. You're basically with the G3X looking at the shorter slide and barrel, about 3.2 inches with that 15-round flush fit magazine. A lot of people will call that the carry model. Long grip, short barrel. Which it's fine, but it just depends what you want to do, how you carry it. If I'm concealed carrying, especially like an IWB, even more if it's like appendix up front. See, there's different levels and ways that this exasperates itself. I find that the easiest part for me to conceal is the snout. So having a little longer frame sticking out there makes it easier to conceal. Actually prints less due to this whole like pendulum effect. But the grip frame, you know what I mean? That's the hard part for me to conceal. So the G3X is nice, and I do like it, but it's not my favorite. I'd rather almost have a G3C, but then I could use the 15-round mag in it and use my Bloody Wheels grip spacers. I know I haven't talked about him on the channel in a long time, guys. I literally have Bloody Wheels grip sleeve spacers right in here for 2 Taurus pistols that are pretty new to his offering. So stay tuned for the channel. Like literally some brand new products from Bloody Wheels. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, go back to the Taurus playlist. You'll learn what I'm talking about, right? Yeah, man, I'd rather have a G3C so I could keep it 12 rounds flush if I wanted and then add to it. The G3 is nice. That's the bigger grip frame, but it's got the longer 4-inch barrel. But I like the G3 XL. And I actually created one like 2 years before Taurus did. Don't believe me? Go look on my channel. My own creation was on there. And then the G3 XL, when it was launched, is on there. I would rather have the longer barrel and slide and that shorter grip. Keeping in mind, I can have that 15 or 17 or even 20 if I'm using like Metgar Sig P226 mags, which we've done videos on those too. I'd rather have that longer reload, maybe in my other pouch or my other pocket or whatever, right? I conceal a gun better if I have the slide can be longer. That's not my problem. It's harder to conceal the grip. And read through the chat because there may be different opinions on that. So it's a fine pistol. It's my least favorite of all 4 of those configurations. But I do like it still. It's just my least favorite of the 4. CNT Designs. Yeah, I don't think you're too worried about it either, are you, with the corrosive? He says, little water, flush the gun, oil it, and let it ride. There you go. Do you guys think I'm nuts? But like even shooting some other ammo behind it, to me, has been good enough. I'm not saying that's you or what you want to do, I kind of like stopped cleaning a lot of my stuff a long time. You know what I mean? What's happening, Anne Marie? Nice to see you. My Massachusetts friend. What's up, Chris Wood? Cleaning his gun right now? Right on, man. Dude, I got that PSA GF3 that's up to just shy of 4,000 rounds. Hasn't been cleaned ever. Put a few drops of oil on it on day 1, and there's people in the chat that can be witness to that have literally shot it. What's up, Vanessa Kitty? Nice to see you. Harry Grimley, what's up, man? I'm glad you got that in the mail. And that's the first time you've ever put a sticker on a car? Wow, dude, I'm honored, actually. But here's the thing. It's not about me. That's why my stickers and my logo, the 2-way is real big and prominent. So I'm glad you put my sticker on your car because you're representing the 2-way. You know what I mean? The 2-way EDU important part, who cares about him? But if you're representing the 2-way, nice and big, you know what I'm saying? DLD says, dang it, I missed my chat being read. Well, I can't keep up with all the chats. And I think you know how this works. It only shows top chat when you're in StreamYard. But I definitely read your super chat, and it was a good one. So if you missed it, you might have just been out of the room. But I know for a fact I read that one. And again, if I'm missing anybody's chats, no offense. I'm trying to come through here and read as much as I can just for a couple more minutes. Randy Smith says, you talked about your elderberry juice that I buy on locals. What he's saying is I talked about it in a local stream. Can you tell us what kind or brand it is? And is it a powder? Sorry if this is off topic. Completely off topic, but this is my elderberry here. And it is a liquid. And it's actually really, really good. And I will show you guys more info on that over on locals, since I don't have any like right here in my hand. You know what I mean? What's happening, Dale? How you doing, man? He says, yep, we can agree. We have 2 G2Cs. Yep. Him and his wife are both big into Tauruses. Him and his wife are both good people, too. But they also have good taste in guns. Says we have 2 G2Cs, 2 G3Cs, and a G3 full size. Yeah, I like the G3 XL as well, guys, too. And I like the G3X. It's all good. It's just my least favorite of those 4 for reasons. Let's see here. No problem, Walker Customs. Thank you, man. Okay. AED East says, thoughts on the Taurus 605 Toro? I have a 605. It's back there. Out of reach. Susan Wiki and all the YouTube employees. The Toro would be the Taurus Optics Ready option. So I know about the 605. I shot a Toro at an event last year, and it's fine, but it's weird to me. Now, I'm not saying it in and of itself is weird. It might just be me that's weird, or like it's just kind of a novel concept in a way. What he's talking about, guys, is a revolver. 605. We're talking about 357 Magnum. Obviously 38 Special also. And I don't know if he's in the chat still, but Mateo's own special cartridge that he's basically invented. Shoots all of those. But it has an optics mounting option where you can put a red dot on your revolver. I don't own one, okay? I think if I had more time with it, I'd like it. And don't mistake what I'm about to say for me disliking it. You guys know how this is, right? If you ever just borrowed a friend's gun, maybe you just rented one, or you go to an event where there's like hundreds of guns and you only have a minute to spend with each one. I think some of you know what I mean-ish, right? I'll just say it was weird. And that's not me saying I don't like it. It was weird. I didn't instantly just say, whoa, this is perfect, but I don't know that that's something you would instantly just know if it's perfect or not. What do you guys think, chat? Like, again, one more time, you can go back to what I said in the beginning. If that's the correct answer, put that in the chat. Like, totally cool, guys. Like, maybe I'm just weird, but it just seemed weird to me. I don't know. Those are my thoughts, though. I just can't tell you for sure if I like it or not. I don't want to be unfair one way or another. I don't know, but it was weird. But I think it's cool that they have it because, I don't know, maybe I'll get one eventually and it'll be my favorite. Maybe one of you has one and it's your favorite. If it's one of your favorites, then that's a great reason they came out with it. I don't know if I like it or not. Harry Grimley, what's happening, man? He says, 2A EDU, what's the difference between Grendel and Creedmoor? Well, this could be a topic of conversation for an hour, so I'm going to try to go really quick. Let's look at 6.5, so 6.5s. Okay, fine. Let's assume they're about the same size projectile as far as the bore, 6.5 millimeters. Okay. Big difference is going to be this. Of course, you're going to be able to have different grain weights of bullets, but I think this is the most concise way if you just want like the real quick Cliff Notes version. The one's an intermediate cartridge, 6.5 Grendel. It's not correct to say that it's based off of a 7.62 by 39 because it's actually technically not. But if you wanted to say, dude, it's just a neck down 7.62 by 39, I'd be fine with that. I think for just like surface level conversations, that's a good way to look at it. Intermediate cartridge, right? So 5.56 is an intermediate cartridge. 7.62 by 39 is an intermediate cartridge. We could look at the one that kind of started all this rage, the 8mm Kurz, the 7.92 by 33. This is a piece of brass actually from one of those. When my friend the Hoff, God rest his soul, is no longer with us, let me shoot his Sturmgewehr, his STG-44. And this is one spent casing from, and you guys can watch the YouTube short if you want to see it, but this is from the Hoff, they call him, Richard Hoffman of BWE Firearms. He was a good man, really cool guy. I'm not saying we were best friends, but we did get a chance to hang out all day shortly before he died, and I liked him a lot. But I got to shoot his Sturmgewehr. It's called the STG-44, okay? The German storm rifle, whatever you want to call it. And that's the epitome of what I would call an intermediate rifle cartridge. Now we go to the Creedmoor. Now this is a full-size rifle cartridge. Now start thinking, and I know this is not completely correct, guys, but just a surface level, because there's a lot of new people that watch. And I'm not saying Harry's new, but there's somebody, right, that might not know any of this. Look at that as more of like a 308, okay? Neck down. It's not exactly like that, but neck down to 6.5. So you're looking at 7.62 or 30 caliber, right? For a 308 down to 6.5 millimeters. So neck down. So yeah, and you're going to get different grain weights of bullets, although you could have some overlapping grain weights too. But you could certainly put heavier projectiles in a 6.5 Creedmoor if you wanted to go on that end of the spectrum than you could a Creedmoor. Or, I'm sorry, I said it backwards. A Creedmoor could get longer than you could a Grendel. So I don't know. I guess it'd be kind of if you wanted to take those two. I think this is pretty fair, guys. Ish. I know there's lots of semantics with ammo. Okay. So just feel free to let the salt fly in the chat. But I think it'd be fair to say 6.5 Grendel is the 6.5 Creedmoor as like 7.62 by 39 is to 308. And I'm choosing 7.62 by 39 for a reason, because the United States really never made a 30 cal intermediate. They made a 22 intermediate, and the 30 carbine is not truly an intermediate rifle round. It's actually a lot more ballistically similar to 357 Magnum, if you want my honest opinion, than it would be to like a 30 cal intermediate round. And if you wanted to go Russian to Russian, you can say 7.62 by 39 to 7.62 by 54R. But that's another rabbit hole, because in many cases, 7.62 by 54R and 308 perform similarly until you get to some of those longer, heavier sniper bullets for the 54R. And then in my humble opinion, see, this is comment generator, guys, right now for the algorithm, can outperform 308 once you get into certain bullet weights. That's my opinion. Now, speaking of which, right here, RPM, we were just talking about him earlier. RPM has a 6.5 Grendel offering. This is his 123 grain AMAX. 6.5 Grendel. You know what I mean? More information on that in my locals post. I'm going to make that post as soon as I'm done. But yeah, see, there you go. I mean, nice little intermediate round, right? This will fit into an AR-15 platform if you want to go that route, whereas 6.5 Creedmoor would have to go into an AR-10, if you will, LR-308. There's a million names for that non-standardized platform. 6.5 Grendel with a little ballistic tip. It's called the Hornady. It's a Hornady bullet. Yeah, Hornady, called AMAX. They make VMAX. Different maxes. Let's see here. Just 2691. I own a PSA Rock and I absolutely love it. I do not own one, but I've shot one a couple times. I have large hands and I love how it feels. I think that it will be my carry gun every day. What are your thoughts on that? Do you like or trust them? Look, here's my thoughts on them. I think they're a cool gun. Would I inherently trust them? Sure, but don't trust any gun, no matter what it is. I don't care who makes it, unless you've shot that gun enough on a one-way range, meaning not a two-way range where you're fighting for your life, where you're shooting to live. Because that's the reason you might try to pull your firearm, is to live through an imminent threat. But look, whether I would carry one or not isn't what you're asking me, right? I would trust one after I trusted it. Now, I could have one that I had shot 5,000 rounds through and defended my life with 15 times, and then I could buy a brand new one. And would I trust that one? I mean, I wouldn't inherently distrust it, but this is for all guns, not just this gun, but this applies to any gun you're going to carry, no matter what it is. I trust it like in the abstract, but to trust my life with it, no, I don't trust any new gun with my life. I have to shoot it myself, several hundred rounds. You guys do you, but at least shoot a little bit. Like, if you can't afford hundreds of rounds of ammo, at least go out and like shoot it some. Like, some's better than none. Practice with the gun enough where you know how to shoot the gun, whether you can trust it or not. Second of all, make sure you use the same mags and ammo that you're going to be carrying. At least get some practice. Your budget or your priorities are going to dictate how much of that you can do. That's where you guys all have to make these very personal decisions. In an ideal world, you'd like to shoot 5 boxes of the really good gold dot hollow point, whatever it is you're going to use. You know what I'm saying? But you just can't afford it. At the very least, guys, if you're going to carry, you have to at least get a mag through. Like, at the very, very least. I would say that's technically less than adequate, but it's way better than nothing. So, yeah. I think you'll have a pretty good idea if you can trust the gun or not. There's no red flags about that model that would tell me not to. There's certain little nuances, like when anybody comes out with a brand new model, sometimes there's quirks that have to be worked out right off the bat, but that's why you go shoot it out on the range. I bought a dagger from PSA when it was brand new model. Like, my serial number's in the couple hundreds, right? So one of the very first ones, it had an issue. It had a manufacturer's defect. And guess what? I found that out by actually shooting it, sent it in under the warranty, lifetime warranty, no problem. have not had that malfunction since after they did service to it. Now I trust it. So there you go. Let me take another quick look here, and I'm going to jump off in just a minute. Do you guys like this Q&A stuff at the end? Seems like you guys do. Yeah, it's all good, dude. East, I was just giving you my honest feedback. I think it's a cool idea, man. I really do. I'm not as tactical as a lot of you guys, though. I'm like, dude, I'm kind of old. Like, I can tell by looking at your picture. And I mean this is a compliment. Good looking dude. You're a young buck. You know what I'm saying? You're a little bit of a young buck. I'm kind of getting old, man. Like, more of my life, they haven't had red dots, or if they did, like only like, I remember at one time only like really rich people or like sponsored competition shooters can get them. But dude, like a lot of this stuff's still kind of new to me. I have red dots and I use them, and you know, but yeah, man, some of this stuff just kind of throws my brain for a little bit of a loop. But a red dot on a revolver is probably a heck of a lot cooler than I am. You know what I mean? I get kind of curmudgeon and set in my ways sometimes, though. It's just the way it is, man. Sometimes I just like old guns with iron sights. I still love the Bible. I still love the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution. I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm a true conservative. Take me back, musket, whatever. That'd be totally fine with me. Musket, warship, cannon, 1776, 1791. And I don't know if we could have just frozen it that way. Like if we could still actually have, here's what I'm going to say to you guys. If we could still actually have like the Bill of Rights and it was actually the supreme law of the land, like no questions asked, I wouldn't care about any of these modern firearms. If the government had muskets and we had more of them than the government would be, I'd be totally fine with that. That's like how old school I am. Like, give me my musket, give me the Second Amendment as what it meant in 1791, and I'd be good. Beautiful wife, beautiful daughter, parents that love me, couple close friends. Look, if you think you have more than a couple close friends in life, like truly, truly close friends, you're probably kidding yourself. But, dude, if you can count people that truly care about you, even when you're not acting your best, even when you're acting up and when your chips are down. My dad told me this many years ago, and I never forgot it. And I'm sure somebody told him that, and he never forgot it. If you can find this many people in life who you truly care about, can truly trust, you're actually extremely lucky. So, man, give me enough people to fill up one hand that I truly love and truly love me, and that I can trust no matter what, and my musket, and the actual meaning of the Second Amendment in 1791, I'd be good. I don't know if that's me being curmudgeon or old school or what, but that's where I'm at. So some of this fancy stuff after every once in a while, and that actually has nothing to do with whether you believe in the founding documents or not. I know you know that. I'm just saying, like, man, I'm too stuck back in 1791 sometimes for some of these modern inventions. You know what I mean? Like, I enjoy sitting. You guys might think I'm joking, but I like to sit and read this stuff like over and over again. Like, I read this a lot. And I'll tell you right now, not as much as I should, because there's so much stuff to keep up with. But I like to read this a lot too. So I'm a little bit old school in a lot of my interests, if you know what I mean. And it's hard for me to keep track of everything going on right now. But hopefully there's somebody in the chat that has a revolver with a red dot on it. Let us know how it goes. What's up, Joe Pachetti? How you doing, man? My southern friend from the great state of Alabama, right? Alabama boy in the house. We got a Florida man here, Patrick Fellers. What's happening, Patrick? I think there is a point to a red dot on that. I really do, actually. It might literally bring it to the whole next level. Look, guys, I was in an event where there were like, I think I said there were 600 guns I could have shot. There was probably like 1,000. And it's like, okay, I'll try this real quick, I guess. And I was like, whoa, this is weird. I don't understand this right now. And then it's like, well, maybe later. And then I went on to other stuff. You know, I don't know. What 40 do you prefer? My favorite 40, I don't know, it's probably more of like a 9mm or I like 382 actually quite a bit. I like 32. Dude, I even like 25 ACP. Now, I'm not really a 22 LR guy, except for once in a while when I am. And once in a while when I just got like that 22 LR itch, then it'll be my favorite cartridge. But just for like an hour or two, or for, range session, and then it's not my favorite anymore. But 357 SIG is a good version of 40. What do you think, Mateo? What's the best 40 you prefer? The 357 SIG version? I'm not even a big 10mm guy. I was just letting you guys know that RPM, Rockfield Precision Munitions, they're 10 mils actual 10 mil. And that's important for a 10 mil guy. But I don't shoot a lot of 10 mil either, to be honest with you. I'd say probably my favorite 40 loading is probably probably a 357 SIG. And I just started all kinds of drama by saying that. What's happening bad for you? What do you think, Mateo? I'm not a 40 fan, guys. But I'm not ashamed of that. Like, I'm just not a 40 fan. Do I advocate it doesn't exist? Of course not. Like, duh. Why would I want it to not exist? But if someone just said, what's your honest opinion? Do you like 40? No. I mean, hate's a strong word, but it's an inanimate object, so I'll say it. I actually kind of hate the cartridge, but don't mistake that for me saying it shouldn't exist. I would never advocate to ban anything, actually. What's happening, Jane Locke? How you doing? Jane Locke likes her CZ varieties. She likes her Tauruses. Oh, boy, this girl right here, she's a good girl, too. I like Jane Locke. What's happening, Jane? We were just hanging out like the other day. But, dude, she has a beautiful SKS. Ask her about her SKS, guys. Like, that wood is, like, so beautiful. I couldn't afford to take this gal out to dinner. And I literally couldn't afford to buy this SKS. But if I could afford to buy that SKS off of her, I would. Ask her about her SKS, guys. What's up, D. Mick? He says, 2A, wise words about friendship and history of governments. Very unfortunate. It's usually not there to serve the citizens. Usually only there to serve its own interests. I know, man. And it is unfortunate, but, yeah. You get what's going on. I think Mateo. See, Mateo says 357 SIG. And Mateo knows what I'm doing here. Dude, Mateo explained 40 to me many years ago. And Mateo's been known to be a 40 guy. I'm not going to probably ever like it just because I'm kind of like, I told you I'm kind of a curmudgeon. I'm kind of like get set in my ways and stuff. I don't know. I'll try any caliber once or twice, but I don't know if I'll ever like 40 or not. But he's been a big 40 guy forever. But that's kind of a little inside joke where it's like, you start saying you like 357 Sigma, that can be fighting words with the 40 crowd. Then the 10 mil guys come in and they're just like mad at both. But then actually, though, to be honest, and I have more 9mm than any type of pistol, I'm pretty sure. Maybe more 7.62 by 25 Tokarevs, but that's old stuff I bought for nothing back in the day, like in the archives. You know what I mean? It's good to have like archives of firearms. You just don't want the Second Amendment and the Bill of Rights to be in the archives. Like that needs to be up front. But a little bit of Cosmoline and a little bit of deep archival of firearms, I completely endorse and approve of that in every manner possible. But let's just say 9mm is probably the most prolific in my collection. The 9mm guys, come on, guys. And if I had to pick, I guess I'm a 9mm guy. I guess. But I don't like to be pigeonholed. And I know most of you don't either. The 9mm guys are getting feisty lately. 9mm guys are almost becoming more judgmental than the 10mm guys. I'm like, geez, oh, Pete's 9mm guys. Come on now. Come on now. Let these 40 guys debate a little bit. You got to give them something to look forward to. I mean, they're going to go through recoil, spring assemblies. They're going to break their guns. I mean, these 40 guys are already punishing themselves enough, but geez, oh, Pete, we don't got to get that spicy. Like, you guys ever read some of these comment threads? I can't be the only one. Jeez, oh, Pete's, man. These guys will come in there and, dude, for the longest time, it was like the 40 versus the 357 SIG guy. Then it was the 10 millimeter, the best millimeter guys. Shout out to all of you guys. But some of these guys would get a little bit spicy and a little bit uncouth. Then out of nowhere, all these 9 mil guys are like, everybody sucks unless you're in a 9 mil. Nope, nope, nope. I'm like, but hold on a minute. I'm carrying a 380 right now. I'm like, no, you suck. You're not allowed to talk to us. I'm like, but what if I own more 9 millimeters than you do? See, this is just a hypothetical I was asking these guys. I'm like, what if I own more 9 millimeters than you do? I just happen to be carrying a 380 right now. They're like, not allowed to talk to us. You're not in the club. You don't have the decoder ring that'll give you the secret password. You ain't even allowed to talk to us. I'm like, but guys, hold on. I'm carrying a 9 millimeter as well. Just like also a 380 at the same time. And don't forget, I own more 9 millimeters than any of you do. And they're like, nope, not allowed to talk to us. I'm like, whoa. So I know that's not everybody, trust me, but some of these 9 mil guys, man, there's kind of a new breed of 9 mil guy that's roaming around the internet a little bit. Joseph Pichetti, what do you think of the Taurus TH10? I've never shot one. I have the TH9C, which you're probably aware of, because I know you've been watching the channel a long time and you're a fellow Taurus guy. I don't know. I'd like to shoot one. 10 millimeter version of a gun that I own in 9. I know 45 as well. 40, right? The TH40. I don't know if they still make that anymore. I don't know, but I'm curious. I don't know that they're out for public. I don't know. I don't know anything about the gun, actually, except for that I know that it's been announced. Have a good night, Anne-Marie. I'm going to wrap up in just a second, guys. So let's see. 45 Super. What's up, Modern Mountaineer? Not a bad idea, actually. That is something that's appealing to me, 45 Super now. I think that's a good idea. What do you guys think? See, the 45, guys. Jeez, oh, Pete, all you guys. Don't forget to leave a thumbs up, guys, if you've forgotten to so far. We could use a little help with that because, look, there's one thing you never want to do on here. You never want to cast shade on any caliber. Dude, I've been cast shades on like 8 calibers. I even just cast shade on 9 millimeter guys. And probably nowadays, that's probably mainly what I am, actually. I just ripped on myself and had to give my own stream a thumbs down. So please help me out, guys. And don't forget to hit that thumbs up button. I mean, these are caliber controversies. You're not supposed to do this on the internet, right, Mateo? You're not supposed to talk about these things nowadays, but we do, though, on this channel. You're not supposed to talk about calibers. You're not really supposed to talk too much about the Constitution. All arguments should be semantics only. Just court probabilities of semantics when it comes to function. And please tell me someone else is old enough to remember this. Remember that? Slick Willie, they called him. He said, well, that depends on what the definition of the word is. That's kind of status quo, but tonight we've talked about the Constitution. I've kind of ripped on a bunch of calibers tonight, dude. Like, I'm just going to say straight up, dude, 9 millimeter sucks. And if you own one, so do you. 45 sucks, and so do you. I mean, 40 sucks. 22 LR, and everyone that owns it. Let's see here, 380 sucks. Jeez, well, I've still got 1 subscriber left. 9 millimeter Makarov sucks. Oh, they'll all be back, guys. Don't worry about it. I don't know. What do you think? D-Mix says, stir that pot. Oh, you got to have fun with this stuff, guys. You have to. You have to. I mean, we're all under so much stress right now with so many things. We got to have fun about these caliber wars. We like these, don't we, Gort? What's happening, Gort? He says, where's all the 30 Super Carry supporters? You suck for even asking that question. Thank you very much. What's happening, Gort? Nice to see you, man. See, I forgot I didn't tick off 30 super carry guys. Now, 30 super carry is a cool concept. I don't own one, though. I know it's high pressure. It's got a little bang to it. Where's the 30? Come on, guys. Where's the 30 super carry supporters? There's got to be one or two. What do you think, Mateo? I know Mateo has had or still does have a 30 super carry. I can't keep track of this guy. He's all over the place with his gun collection, but he either has or does have one or maybe two. So maybe you got Mateo with you. What's happening, Girl Carpenter? How you doing, man? From the great state of Indiana, Girl Carpenter checking in saying request granted. Thumbs up applied. Well, thank you, man. Even though I ripped on your favorite caliber and everyone's favorite caliber, I would probably say, guys, I'm pretty much a 25 guy. Right here. My friend JJ Rainey, he might be watching on replay. We'll probably see him on locals. Right here, guys. I mean, really, to be honest with you, my friend gave me this. This is called your 50 grain TMJ. This is the big 25 auto. 25 auto. 535 for all of you metric fans. I mean, really? You know what I'm saying, guys. I mean, really? So, yeah. I almost said that I hate all calibers until I just saw this sitting here. Now, I talked about this in a stream a while ago, and I said, this is all you need. And some guy came and said, well, actually, 2A EDU. Shout out to all of the well, actually, guys. Shout out to all of the, well, actually, 2A EDU, ... Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Well, actually, 2A EDU, you're wrong, they said. This is serious. Like, you can go back and find that. They said, well, actually, here's the problem. They said, 25 is the weakest cartridge there is. It's actually even weaker than 22, except if you're talking about a 22 short. I get lots of education on here, which I appreciate. They educated me, and they said, well, actually, 2A EDU, that's the weakest cartridge there is. Even weaker than 22, unless it's a short. And I said, thank you very much. The 22 I compare it to is a short. So you're wrong. And I got him. Because he started with the well, actually. And I said, well, unless it's a 22 short. Look it up, ballistics, guys. Get your ballistic calibers out, right? Oh, boy. Joe Pachetti says, sorry if you like it. It's all good, man. I do like this, though. I think it's a nice cartridge. Yeah. 50 grains. I mean, look at this. And you guys can't really mess with this too much. Hold on a minute. This is at the muzzle. Yeah. Keep your jokes to yourself, boys and girls. Look at this. Hold on a minute. Muzzle velocity, 810 foot per second. This is at the muzzle. Energy, 73 foot-pounds. And you won't believe this, dude. This has got a better BC to it. This is ballistic coefficiency. This has a better BC than 6.5 Creedmoor or Grendel. This has 0 muzzle drop at the muzzle. I mean, you guys think I'm making this up. At the muzzle, right here, at the muzzle, it has 0 muzzle drop. Now look at this. Even at 100 yards, it's respectable. 700 foot per second at 55 grains. This is 54 foot-pounds of torque. For all of you diesel guys out there, how much does your Cummins have? How many foot-pounds of torque does it have? 54. Geez, 54 pounds. I mean, it dropped 7.7 inches. That's respectable, actually. I mean, close enough. As you guys have heard that saying, right? It's the oldest saying in the book. Close enough for horseshoes and 25 ACP. I mean, you grew up with that saying, didn't you? It's close enough for horseshoes, hand grenades, and 25 ACP. This is some nice stuff. Okay. Public service announcement. Could I have your attention, please? Could I have your attention, please? For everybody in the chat, hold on, I got to put my boring face on. Ladies and gentlemen, for everybody in the chat, that didn't know that I was joking. Well, actually, 2A EDU, 22 long rifle. Guys, I know. I wouldn't stand in front of a BB gun. It's okay. I know it hurts and it's lethal. And ladies and gentlemen, this is 2A EDU. And today we will talk about the terminal ballistics. 22 short is lethal. 25 ACP is lethal. 22 LR is lethal. I've been shot, but it is. Of course it's lethal. Can I have some fun on a Friday night? Well, actually, we are going to have some fun. I hope I can see all of you guys over on Locals tomorrow night. We're going to be hanging out. We're going to have a good time. Don't forget those thumbs up. There's actually some actuallys that have come in the chat tonight, but it's all good because you guys are just joking with me too. Talk about a lot of wisdom in the Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights, and I've been reading this verse a lot on here lately. You're not supposed to read this, but I'm going to read a few verses from the Holy Bible. Why? Because I want to. And they say, dude, don't do that. You can't do that. I know. If someone's offended, they can change the channel, but Ecclesiastes. This comes from chapter 3. And if you guys own a Bible, here's what I challenge you to do over this week. Go through and look at each line to this. And just think about it, because there's a lot of wisdom in Ecclesiastes 3. To everything there is a season, a time for every purpose under heaven. And this is the New International Version. Some of you prefer the King James or the New King James. There's many fine versions. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to pluck what is planted. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to break down and a time to build up. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. And I want to focus on all of this, but I want to focus on this one just for 2 seconds here, guys, before we go about our weekend. And I hope you all have a good weekend, but a time to embrace. And I encourage you guys to embrace. I encourage you guys to embrace the Constitution. I encourage you guys to embrace good people. There's still a lot of good people left out there. There's lots of doom and gloom, but anything that can give you positive energy, your friends, your family, God, your God, whatever it is that you think is good in life. And I challenge you to try to find some good in life this week. I encourage you to embrace it. Embrace the Second Amendment. Embrace your gun. This is a battle of good versus evil, and I really, really think it does your soul, it does your mental health, and it does your physical health a lot of good to embrace as much as you can that's good. Now, at the same time, there's a lot of temptation out there, and there's a lot of stuff that's just wrong, and use your common sense. You know when something's wrong. And when you know something's wrong, treat it as though it's wrong. Don't try to justify it, because there's a lot of bad out there. And it continues and it says a time to refrain from embracing. We shouldn't embrace the National Firearms Act. We shouldn't embrace corrupt governments. We shouldn't embrace sin. We shouldn't embrace evil. So these are two opposites of each other, obviously, but they're actually the same thing. When there's something good, you need to embrace it, because you need to build up strength and encouragement from whatever you can that encourages you. And you need to fill yourself with things that are right, so then you can have the energy and the desire and the willpower to reject things that are wrong. And there's a lot of things that's wrong, and we need to talk about those things, and I talk about those things a lot. You need to cast those away, and you need to refrain from embracing. If you know it's wrong, you know it's wrong. Don't embrace it. If you go along to get along on stuff that's bad, then you become bad, and you're perpetuating things that's evil. So refrain from embracing things that are evil and try to start embracing things that are good. I know there's good people out there. You guys being in this chat literally proved to me that. A time to gain and a time to lose. A time to keep and a time to throw away. A time to tear and a time to sow. A time to keep silence and a time to speak. A time to love and a time to hate. A time of war and a time of peace. That's Ecclesiastes chapter 3, first 8 verses, and there's actually a lot more good ones right behind it. And there's actually a ton of good verses before it too. So embrace things that are good. Refrain from embracing things that are bad, because this is a battle of good versus evil. And don't be ashamed for what you believe in. And try to keep your head high. And I definitely look forward to hanging out with you guys again on here next Friday. Hopefully locals as well. In the meantime, let me check chat one more time, and I am going to jump off of here. Patrick Fellers is coming with a super chat. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. He says, honestly, I love my S&W 5.7, but the rounds are expensive. Ain't that the truth? He says, but it's easily concealed. It's a super fun gun. What do you think about the 5.7? I think it's cool. I think it's super fun. You know what I think is kind of cool about it? And it's like a super loud bang and like muzzle report, flash, and all that, but like very, very little recoil. Is it a synonym for 5.56? No, it's 5.56, short and wimpy. Literally, it is 5.7. But I think it's a cool gun to plink with. I don't carry one. Would I carry it? Sure, if I wanted to. So, yeah, I think it's cool, man. And maybe I'll get a chance to shoot a rock here again soon, or a Ruger, or a Smith & Wesson, or any of them. So, yeah. I think it's a cool round, and I completely agree with you that it's very, very expensive. What's happening, Chanzik? Nice to see you at the last minute, man. I'm glad you had a good time. Thank you for joining tonight. DLD After Dark says, I believe that Jesus Christ is my Savior. I believe Jesus Christ died on the cross to absolve us of our sins. He died and was resurrected and is seated at the right hand of the Father. Amen to that. I believe that as well, and I'm glad to see that that's where you're getting your encouragement from. And stay encouraged, man, because there's lots of problems out there. We all know that. Good night, Maverick, man. Take it easy. Good night, Jane Locke. 22 Magnum. See, now we've started the 22 Magnum 5.7 debate. It's a good debate. I love that debate. Take it easy, Gort. I will see you tomorrow, too. God bless you, Pillbox Bunker. Take it easy, Randy Smith. No problem, man. God bless you, too. What's happening, Kurt24? How you doing, man? Kurt24's got a 5.7 or so. I know he's got at least one. You guys are funny. Yeah, you can look up the lyrics to Turn, 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 Maverick, man. Yeah. Yeah. I became aware of that way after I was aware of this verse. Someone's like, why are you reading the lyrics to Turn, 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 or something like that? I'm like, I'm reading from the Bible. They're like, dude, there's a song like that. I'm like, oh, must be a new song. And then I found out it's a really old song from the 60s. So there you go. I did become aware of the song, like, oh, probably about 40 years too late or so-ish. 50 years, whatever. That's all right, though. God bless you too, Kent. All right, guys, I will see you soon. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.